Okay, so tonight's Omni Faith studies is going to come out of a Holy Bible that I've had for a long time, since my first marriage. It is a New International Version, New International Version. And as I said in our last studies, that I was going to have a different Bible, and we were going to read the same two paragraphs again. And tonight we're going to have a little fun with it, okay? So let's see if I can change the lighting here. Oh, that's spooky. Whoa. All right. So, now we're going to read these two paragraphs again. And then let's create an interesting story. All right? All right. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning on the first day. All right, so now that that sounded like very serious, let's go a little bit slower. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. There was evening, and there was morning the first day. All right, so what kind of story or imagination can we create from this? Now, there are many that already exist, and a lot of them are really cool. There's a lot of movies out there, too, if you don't realize it. They're actually kind of based on these first two paragraphs. So, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. All right. Well, we could think of a guy in his workshop or a gal. We could think of the spaghetti monster. We could think of a dog. We could think of an animal laying an egg, so to speak, if you want, right? Because inside that egg is an entire life structure. They have these things called ecospheres. They're really cool. They're a glass globe. Some are round, some are egg-shaped, some are pillared, some are square, but they're completely sealed, and they have an entire life system going on inside them. So we could think of a lot of different things just from that first sentence. We could think of scientists inside of their laboratories creating all kinds of different things. We could think of aliens. We could think of the greatest of deities. This is the cool thing about having a faith like this, because here is where the Omni comes in and actually plays in to just playing around with these two paragraphs. Having an avid imagination, having a creative imagination, one that does not have a great deal of limitations, to where you just keep trying to imagining something new and different, right? Will help with mental health therapy. So this helps with people suffering from dementia. This helps with people suffering from Alzheimer's. This helps with people that are autistic, ADHD, bipolar. There's a lot of different things that having a creative and active imagination is very healthy and positive for. So even if you have a structured faith or no faith at all, because there are many areas in Genesis and many areas in the Bible that seem so very open-ended to interpretation or could be construed in any way, shape, or form, you can use your imagination. You can fire up your imagination and keep creating new stories off the same platform that's here, okay? Again, there are many movies, TV shows, books, and all kinds of things out there that have a lot of structure of the Bible as a part of it, because it helps create that wild imagination. Okay, so again, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Formless and empty. The earth was formless and empty. So we could say that, like, this is the blueprint site, work site, where we want to build something, but nothing is there yet. Okay, it could be the warehouse. Okay, and it doesn't have the cash registers and the store food. Formless and empty. The earth was formless and empty. It could be all the parts on a work site not assembled. Okay, it could be the inside of a coconut shell once all the milk is missing. Formless and empty. Okay, you could all kinds of things fit formless and empty. All right. Formless could be, I'm gonna be a little formless would also be something that could be like very malleable, very something which form changes quite frequently, does not maintain a solid state structure. Okay, so darkness was over the surface of the deep. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. Okay, so again, you can think about an entity, a person, male, female, a dog, a spaghetti monster, an alien, a spirit, a light, magic coming from the wand, over the workstation, over this formless and empty workstation or plotted area, whether that area be in the midst of the air, whether that area be where everything is going to be assembled together. So, if you think about like science today, we have kind of a very primitive concept of the assembly of a planet, which is where like a lot of different very impressive and overwhelmingly informative amount of things happen together that create a solid structure that then becomes a planet, right? Whether it's a gas planet, whether it's a solid planet, one could equate it to like kind of what happens inside the womb when the sperm hits the egg and that explosion happens. There's so much about it that we as humans just cannot understand. So if we want to go back to, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over its waters. Now, if you want to go with science again, the Spirit of God hovering over its waters. Okay, so we'll go really, really far out there, and we'll go with the Big Bang Theory. Okay, there's like all of this stuff pouring in. That's all that makes everything that we can see thus far, which science says. On the outside of that, that could be the Spirit of God hovering over its waters. It could be the fishermen at the river. It could be, let's see here. It could be the Spirit of God hovering over the waters. Honestly, if you really want to get down to it, it kind of sounds like two people having sex, if you want. So like you could be very imaginative with all of this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So again, that could be very sensual. That could be very like romantic, if you will. The earth was formless and empty. Well, the egg inside the woman is empty. It's not formed into anything, so it's formless and empty until the sperm enters it, and a human is begun to be created. So, you have darkness over the surface of the deep. Well, again, we can go very sexual with this. I mean, if she's laying back missionary with her legs up, and you're casting a shadow over her, well, there you go. The Spirit of God was hovering over her waters, baby. So, you could be very, very imaginative with it. That's the great thing about it. And hey, there you go. I was having a little bit of depression earlier, and we're reading the very first paragraph. I mean, we haven't even gotten into the second one, and now I'm just cracking up laughing. So, it can be very good for you. Omni Faith, where many things come together that create a better life for you, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be scripture-based. It doesn't have to be any one thing, to be honest, okay? Because God is omnipresent. He's everywhere. She's everywhere. It's everywhere, okay? It's in our DNA. It's in our RNA. It's in everything, okay? We are a part of everything. We're a part of animal. We're a part of nature. We're a part of fish. We're a part of bird. We're a part of dinosaur. We're a part of everything, like rocks and trees. And so, but this is really great, though, okay? Because, a lot of people turn away from the Bible. A lot of people, they stub their nose at it, even though that they say they're faithful and they have faith, or they have belief, or this or that, and they go, oh, well, the Bible says this, or the Bible says that, and I'm tired of being in chains and this and that. Okay, so you can only bind yourself in chains. Jesus will tell you that. Okay, that's one thing that you can very much learn in here. Okay, this book is this thick, folks. Okay, it depends on how you read it. It depends on how you're feeling. It depends on what's going on in life. The more you read it, over and over and over, those chains that bind you will also become unchained, chain by chain, and freedom will reign in your life. And God is good. And Jesus died to try and remind us of things that have once again been brought down upon us and recaged us. A lot of the answers are right here, folks. Pick up the good book. Read it 1,000,000 times. Read the same fucking... I've been reading the beginning of Genesis. I don't know how fucking long, guys. I've read this whole book. Okay? I've read the whole book more than once. I've got more than one copy. It's on my phone. I got like 150 different versions of it on my phone, okay? And I read Genesis the most of all. And I read the Genesis the most before it even gets into like the weird stuff. Like, I'll sit here and I will read Genesis 1, okay? Let me see here. I will read Genesis 1 to Genesis 2, Genesis 3, Genesis 4, Genesis 5, Genesis 6, okay? I will read, I read Genesis 6, and I think 7. I usually kind of stop when it gets to Abraham. I don't know. I mean, I bounce back and forth all throughout it. Bing, 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 bing. Sometimes I'll hear some crazy shit in the world, and it'll be like, oh, read Isaiah, or read Aeschylus, or read this, or read that, or read Nam, or read... and like I said, this isn't even the completion of the Holy Bible. Jesus will tell you when you read this book, okay, and it's said through the apostles, okay, so bear with me on that one, that there is not enough parchment, paper, or otherwise, human, animal, or tree, to write all the stories of God, Jesus, and the rest. There's not. I mean, this planet would never produce enough. And I believe that. I 100% believe 7.8 trillion or billion or whatever years we're into this now, okay, plus the account of man, plus the account of this, that there would ever be enough I mean, I don't even think there'd be enough digital platform to hold all of it. Because then, not only are you taking account from everything in the past, but you're taking account everything that's current and everything to proceed forward. But if we're just going to talk about from when the apostles stated that there would never be enough parchment, paper, or otherwise, made from human, animal, or tree, to create enough to tell these stories, since them before. Now, we're 2,000 years after them, okay? And 7.8 billion people on the planet now, plus all the ones that died. So, yeah, I believe it, you know? And, let's see here. All right, we got, let me see. So we got this huge multitude of ability to create interesting stories, right? And God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. Now, you know, if you think about that, now, and I am not like jumping back and forth to make pinpoints in the Bible right now. We're going to do that in another episode. Because there is a very great and very interesting part and point that I'd like to point out about this here night and day. Okay? Because God said, let there be light, and there was light. There was no light before. Now, this is interesting because we don't know if this is before or after the earth was formless and empty. Now, I'm going to assume that whether there was already other planets at here in this fashion, that their light that we see as stars could not make it to us yet. Okay? Now we're talking it could be 1 million years at least before sunlight actually hits us. So if we're talking that let there be light and there was light, we may be talking about the very first star ever created before Earth. Okay? This might be a sun. This might be a moon. This might be a planet. But this produced light. Now, another concept one could think. Okay? And this is because God saw that the light was good. All right. Now that's very interesting there. God saw that this light was good. He said, let there be light, and there was light. Now this is as he's casting darkness over the surface of the deep. So, does this mean he moved to the side and said, let there be light? Like this. Let me give you an example. Okay? There's darkness. Okay? Let there be light. Doesn't work very well. Okay? All right. But what I'm trying here, maybe this will work. Bam. Okay. God said, let there be light. Ah! Ah! All right. Now, here's the question though. Okay? Is that because when he moved to the side, his wife was there? I mean, you know, they always say behind every good man is a good woman. But that's casting a vote that God's a guy. Now, if that's the case, well then the woman's always the better half because there was light, right? Hold on a second though. We're still not done with this imagination station. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Now, okay, Darkness was over the surface of the deep. Now, is God referring to himself as the darkness? Would that mean that he is a dark entity and she is a light entity? Would day and night be God and his wife? Would day and night be when he went and returned from his workstation, or her workstation, its workstation, their workstation? Okay, so God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. Now, there is obviously missing text because of the way that I have found this in every version. At the end of, and there was evening and there was morning, dash, like missing text, the first day. Now, here is a very interesting thing. Because unless there is missing wordage that belongs right there, and I'm pretty fucking sure there is, either way you look at it, if you want to have a sensible amount of an imagination and understanding in direct literature, that God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. There was evening and there was morning the first day. Now, a lot of people are going to try and tell you that those are the break periods between when one episode starts and ends, as in there was evening the first day and there was morning the first day. Now, if there was evening first on a morning, okay, well, wait a second. That doesn't make sense, because evening is when the light starts to fall down in a day, right? It's getting evening time. It's time for dinner before nightfall. Get your food in, get your evening chores done, or you get your evening chores done, then you get your food in, or maybe you get your food chores. I don't know, okay, right? But I do know, as an American, evening usually starts to fall around 4:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. evening, okay? And morning, usually between 3 to 6 a.m. when the light's coming up, right? The first day. Day, okay? But we still have night, okay? So, what's going on here? All right. God called the light day. Okay, we got light. All right. Light. Bing. Light. See, this is kind of how it goes, right? There's morning. There's evening, right? Morning, evening. This is night right here. This is nighttime. Like, if you're on this side of the planet, it's night. If you're on this side of the planet, it's day, right? But what we're saying is that there was evening and morning the first day. Evening and morning the first day. We haven't even discussed night. All right? So God called the light day. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. Okay? So we're talking about the fact that night has not come, but evening and morning have the first day. Right? It's an interesting concept. Okay? Now, does that mean that this... Okay, so this is not interpretations, because remember, this is Imagination Station. Okay? So if we're on kind of like a thought project, we're not saying that this is what happened. We're not stating that. Okay? We're not your preacher. We're just doing Omni Faith studies. Okay? So, question. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Darkness, night, God. Okay. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. This is very interesting concepts, especially when you get a little bit further into Genesis. All right, guys? Now, just for shits and giggles, we're going to go a little further. And God said, let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water. So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so. God called the expanse sky. That's an interpretation. And there was evening, and there was morning the second day. Now wait a fucking second. Okay? Let's go back to this. All right. We're not going to worry about this expanse of water. We'll talk about the expanse of water in another fucking video. But, again, okay, we're back to this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. Darkness, light. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. And God said, let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water. So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so. God called the expanse, and this is an interpretation, sky. And there was evening, and there was morning the second day. Okay, so I got a question for you. We have no indication of when nightfall is. Nightfall has not yet happened. There has not been a 24-hour rotation around a sun yet in any of this text. Okay? So, as far as we know, the earth hasn't even been made yet. Not even close. Okay? Because we keep talking about this to this to this to this. Right? There's no indication of a 24-hour rotation around the sun. Alright? None. So, what we have right now is we have a formless, empty surface in the deep. A formless, empty surface in the deep. Now, granted, remind you, okay, that these spiritual matters that were sent down and blessed to us by God to be handed down to us throughout the generations were interpreted, understood, reinterpreted, translated to the best of our ability to understand whatever the entity at the time was trying to make sure was going to get across through the generations until the next person, place, or people were going to be given the next chunk that would help make so much more of this make more sense. Now, we have had a lot of archaeological digs. There's a lot of talk about Babylonian aliens, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry. If the aliens made the humans, they still didn't make this. Okay? So, sorry about your luck, Chuck. I mean, this still falls in the Big Bang Theory, and I don't think Big Bang Theory aliens are a part of the program. So, alrighty. Now, we still, I mean, we're at the second day and there's no form to Earth yet. We're at the second day. There's no rotation around a sun yet. I mean, there's literally zero depiction of a sun rotation here. Okay? Now, this so falls in line with Big Bang theorists because they feel that everything is being poured out through this black hole, if you will, creating all that is. This also works with creationist theorists because they believe that this was built in 6 days. Now, if the entity telling the story that is passing along the story came from a set of entities that was created by God, so God, right? God, greatest of deities, and then tells us a story, they may have a concept that of this 6 days. They may live within this 6 days. So 7.8 billion or trillion years, whatever it is 6 days to them when they gave this story down. Okay? This does not mean that these entities are the God, right? Because we also have to remember later in this book, if you will, and this is where I'm cherry picking a little bit, okay? Because, like, you know, I've read some. Also, there is a story in here that the entity that handed down stories to humanity was given the stories by an entity who did all of this in the blink of an eye. So, we are thinking that within the amount of words that could be spoken before a person has to blink, and this is only on the human level, folks, okay? You can say a lot, and if you could speak things into existence, the entity that created us spoke all this into the existence before the blink of an eye. And the entity that was told that story to hand it down to us lived that in 6 days. We live that in 7.8 or whatever million, trillion years, billion years later. Okay? So the concept of this is quite interesting. Very interesting. You could make a lot of fucking movies out of this. I mean, your brain could go on imagination stories forever. And we haven't even gotten to the third day. We're not even to the third day, folks. And I mean, I could talk about these 3 fucking paragraphs and create so much fucking phenomenal fun and inspirational stuff out of it. You could too. You really could. So don't worry about it. It's good for the brain. It's good for the heart. Don't take it to heart. Don't worry about it. It's not going to hurt you or kill you. It's not going to make your life any worse. It might make your life better. It might make your life worse. Some people, they get like, wow, zombie on the Bible. So, but, you know, beware of that. Beware of that. But I'm telling you, folks, I'm telling you, if this, I mean, you could make these 3 paragraphs into the greatest porno story ever. You could make these 3 paragraphs into the greatest cartoon ever. Adult cartoon. You can make these 3 paragraphs into the best war story ever. You can make these 3 paragraphs into Avatar 3. You can make these paragraphs into anything. Cartoons. I mean, hell, you could make a Sunday story for kids out of this. You really could. You know, there's a lot of really cool stuff. You know what, one thing that really bothers me? And this is going to be the end of my rant part here. Why is it that parents give their children a fake version or a very cherry-picked version of this? Now, I understand that kids need to learn the ABCs and what an apple is and a tree is and all that stuff. But what I'm hearing from a lot of people is that their kid don't get a real Bible, like one that isn't super edited and, you know, more than 100 pages, until they're like 16. I'm like, you know how many video games these kids play? Like, a lot of the stuff, the video games is right in this book. Like, wouldn't you rather your kid learn to read than to be stuck doing shit that they can't do? Because what if when they get older, they need to read a blueprint, learn how to make a computer? Gotta learn how to read. Reading's important, folks. Anyways, I hope you had a lot of fun. I did too. We're not quite done, I guess. I'll read a little bit more because, you know, this has just been great. So let's see here. We are going to be starting the next paragraph. Paragraph 4. And this one here says, "And God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land." Interpretations. "And gathered the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good." Now wait a second here. Whoa! Back it up. We got some more interesting stuff here. "Let the waters under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." Well, there's a lot that could be said about that one right there. But we'll start with this. First off, if you are in the formless, empty darkness of the deep, okay? If you are the formless and empty darkness in the deep, okay, of the deep, okay? And you need to make a planet. Okay. From what I understand, out there in space, there is moisture. Okay? I'm not 100% sure about that. But from what I understand, regardless of this fact, God could pull water from wherever the fuck he wanted to or needed to. So, if God is now at this point, because we have not been told yet that we are again referring to Earth, that he may now be assembling the planet. Okay? In this assembly, it says, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place." All right. Now, there are water planets out there. I don't remember what their core is made out of, but they're fucking water. So we know that this can happen. Okay. We also know that, if you made her squirt real good and you decide to get up out and sit down in another place, well then, water got gathered to one place. And then you got to let it dry up some so that dry ground will appear again. And let dry ground appear. Now, let me ask you a question. If you want to make a diamond, okay, you got to take a whole lot of shit, put it together, and compress the living fucking piss out of it. Usually with a lot of heat and friction and right? So, if you were taking stellar water, right? And you want to make land out of this. Okay, so I have done a lot of extraction in my life. Not a lot in comparison to new extractors these days, but in my time I have. And I know how water extraction works. I also know how gas extraction works. Now, let me give you a concept here, all right? Let's say that in this flat earth theory that people have, okay? Many people believe that earth is flat, okay, and not round, right? Either way, it doesn't matter. Because if you take a micron sheet, okay, now micron is something that has very teeny tiny holes in it and is designed to gather substance and allow another substance to pass through, okay? So, if God wanted to collect dry ground out of water, it is possible, okay, to either compress it, squeeze it into a solid object, and allow the moisture that is left to retain on the surface and take the excess away. Or by allowing it to build up, by passing this water through it and allowing the substance that you want in it to create the dry ground to pile up, okay? And once it piles up, it will produce land. And then you can still have water above and below it, okay? Now, for you flat earth fuckers, this works both directions, okay? To capture the water beneath the surface, you have to have a form of containment. So, if there is more water in the interior of Earth than there is on the surface of the Earth, and there has to be a dome-like structure. Sorry, folks, but if all the water were to pass through it, okay, and there was nothing that collected on the other side, we would have a waterfall coming off of Earth back out into space, okay? So there is some sort of containment that has allowed the amount of water that God has decreed as ours to remain in our planet with us. Now, some burns off, so, you know, we're not going to get into all the different layers of the atmosphere. Okay, guys? Fuck you. We're just talking about this. So, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear. And it was so. Now, even with God's little magical wand, whoop, pow, right? He's still gathering to let dry ground appear. Okay? That concept works too. Because if you think of a gold miner, right? A gold miner will take a gold pen and he'll slurry that fucker around. Kind of like what happens when you use the magical wand. Right? And dry ground will appear. Okay. Now, unless there's a capturing device, as you can see, if you ever watch gold mining, the excess water, whoop, away, okay? We have enough telescopes in space that we would see the waterfall coming off of Earth, folks. But, flat earthers, I love you too. Maybe it is so, maybe I'm wrong. But it just would not make absolute sense. But flat earthers are still a theory. You're still in there, man. Don't worry about it. God called the dry ground land, and gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Now, okay, God called the dry ground land. It didn't matter what he called the fucker. It could have been gold. It could have been asshole. It doesn't matter. And gathered waters he called seas. So, again, here we go with what I was just trying to explain. If you're going to be taking something, and you know, we do not have any clue how a planet is built. We fucking don't. Like, what we see out there is already happened. Like, we're trying to catch and witness God at work. We're not going to do it. Sorry, guys. You're not going to catch him. Her, it, whatever. You know, he, she, it. Fuck you and your binary shit. God is God. God, I mean, we don't know. As far as we know, it's a couple. It could be a throuple. Hell, it could be a whole orgy. It's a cascade of orgies. All right. And then God saw that it was good, right? Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it. Okay, let me back up here. Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds. And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. Wait a second here. Holy bejeebers, Batman. We still haven't even... Okay, So we're going to assume, at this point, well, we still can't even assume that it's earth. We're talking about now the earth was formless and empty. We haven't even said that God was working on the fucking earth again. Because all we know really at this point, okay, and I'm not trying to be Sauron or anything else. This is imagination station time, okay, is that God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. There is no fucking concept of earth being manufactured at this point. We know the only thing we know is that the earth was formless, empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. But we do know that God said, let there be light, and light was good. This is in the very beginning of all creation. Okay? The very beginning. There was no other light in what is all before this first light that God made. Okay? The first planet, the first whatever, may or may not even still be lit today. Okay? Or we could be talking about husband and wife. Or we could be talking about whatever. Right? But we do know that we started talking about water, separating waters, okay, for various purposes, creating a structure called sky, creating a structure called land, creating a structure where gathered waters of various kinds were now called seas. But we don't know that this is planet Earth in itself. Okay? This could be anything. Okay? This could be, I don't know. Okay? But here's the other interesting thing about this. Right? Is that God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds. And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed, according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it, according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. Now, again, in this paragraph, there's a couple of notations where it appears to be missing text. So, we don't know what this land is. We don't know where this land is. It could be literally a flat plane of land with some trees producing vegetation. I don't even understand this. Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees, according to their various kinds. And then again, it reiterates, and it was so, that the land produced vegetation, bearing these seeds according to their kinds, and trees according to their kinds. It's double repetitive with a slight hitch in it, right? And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the third day. Now we're back to this day concept again, okay? Let me show you this again. There's no concept of night right here. There's no nightfall, okay? We're talking about evening and morning the first day. No concept of night. Okay, so, I mean, I don't know what we're doing here with this portion. Okay? We haven't made it a 24-hour revolution around the sun. All right? No 24-hour revolution. Okay? So, all as we know, we're running out of light, folks. We're going to have to call this one short. All as we know is that we're on the third day, approximately some billion years into the human revolution, and something is beginning to be formed. This could be Earth. This could be ancient Earth. We haven't even gotten to day 4, so don't worry about it. This is just the imagination of good mental health therapy, thanks to the Holy Bible and the scripture that God and Jesus and all those involved handed down to us. Again, remember, you can avoid the shackles that can be created in your own mind as you read the Bible. There is a lot of power control that was designed into it too along the way. That was done by humanly hands, and God gives you the tools to avoid those within the very book, and does warn you as well on multiple occasions. So just when you feel like things are getting tough, just when you feel like you're like, fuck this thing, I'm going to throw it away, don't worry. They'll be presented another message to you to tell you and remind you to open your imagination, and not everything is truth. The only way to be able to even come close to enjoying the glory of God is to have a wild and ever-evolving imagination. Thank you. This has been Kevin Quinn Fuller with the Bark Park Army. Dog Park Army's Bark Park. Episode 2 on Omni Faith Studies. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you again. We will, if you enjoyed this, leave our Cash App thing. Feel free to donate if you want to. If not, no shame. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.